In 2024, the average American household carries over $100,000 in debt spread across mortgages, car payments, credit cards, and medical bills. The machinery of modern finance is designed to keep you paying indefinitely. But tucked inside the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana, there are communities that have refused that deal for 300 years. 350,000 Americans who built their own economy from scratch and have never needed a bailout, a subsidy, or a debt forgiveness program to sustain it. They are the Amish. And if you have ever wondered how they actually do it, the answer comes down to 20 specific skills. Skills that were once common across all of rural America. Skills that most of us have quietly forgotten even existed. The Amish arrived in Pennsylvania in 1723, driven out of Switzerland and Germany by religious persecution. They were given land, they built on it, and from that very first winter, their survival depended on one working principle: never become dependent on something you cannot control. That principle shaped everything: what they grew, what they built, how they sold, how they borrowed, and more to the point, how consistently they refused to borrow at all. 3 centuries later, the same principle governs a community of over 350,000 people across 31 states, with a population growth rate of 2% per year and a small business failure rate below 10%. Those numbers are not luck. They are the product of a set of skills, practices, and economic habits that were common across rural America within living memory. The Amish simply never stopped using them. We start where every economy starts, with the land. The average Amish family grows between 60 and 80% of everything it eats. This is not a lifestyle statement. It is a deliberate financial strategy that eliminates one of the largest recurring costs in the American household. When your family grows most of its own food, your grocery bill drops towards zero. For a family of 7 or 8 children, and the Amish average is 7, that represents close to $10,000 per year that stays inside the household rather than leaving it. But the garden is not just for feeding the family. The surplus goes to market. Roadside stands, farmers markets, wholesale accounts with local restaurants. In Lancaster County alone, Amish market gardening generates an estimated $100 million in annual revenue, from seeds saved from last season's crop, from soil enriched with the farm's own compost, from labor that costs the family nothing because it comes from the family itself. 300 years of practice will do quite a lot for your gardening operation. People see Amish farmers using horses instead of tractors and assume it is purely a matter of religion. The religion is part of it, but the economics deserve attention on their own terms. A diesel tractor requires fuel, replacement parts, and financing. It depreciates and produces nothing on its own. A Belgian draft horse requires hay, water, and a stall. It also produces manure that enriches the soil and eliminates purchased fertilizer costs. When the mare foals, the farm has a new working asset at no additional purchase price. The Amish have been running this calculation for 200 years. The math has never once changed its answer. Before the modern seed industry decided that farmers should buy new seeds every single planting season, every farmer saved seeds. It was simply how farming worked. The Amish never changed that practice. Seed saving eliminates the largest recurring cost in commercial agriculture after labor. It preserves genetic material, and it produces seed stock adapted precisely to local soil and climate conditions, because it has been growing in those exact conditions for decades. Some Amish families maintain seed lines passed down across 4 or 5 generations, tomato varieties that cannot be purchased anywhere, bean cultivars selected specifically for how they perform in that family's microclimate. Those envelopes on the cellar shelf are genetic insurance. and they are free because last season's harvest provided them. The Amish are among the most productive small-scale dairy farmers in America, and it comes down to a structural advantage that most commercial operations have abandoned entirely. The Amish family owns the cow, produces the milk, processes the dairy product, and sells it directly to the consumer. There is no middleman taking a margin at each point in that chain. One dairy cow produces between 2,000 and 3,000 gallons of milk per year. Converted to artisan cheese and sold at direct retail prices, a single animal can generate $15,000 to $25,000 annually. That is one cow. Most Amish dairy operations run several. The Amish seller is a financial instrument. What it holds in October is what the family eats in February, without reaching for a wallet once. Every August and September, Amish families put up hundreds of jars of preserved produce: tomatoes, green beans, corn, pickles, apple butter, fermented vegetables, smoked and salt-cured meats. The root cellar holds potatoes, carrots, squash, and apples well into spring. Canned food purchased at a grocery store in January costs 3 to 5 times what it costs to produce at home from your own garden in August. A family that puts up 400 jars in the fall eliminates several $1,000s in winter food costs every year without changing a single other thing about how they live. And they never do it alone. Which leads directly to the most visually striking economic institution the Amish have ever built. When an Amish farmer loses a barn to fire or storm, the community replaces it, not with a contractor, not with a construction loan, with people. A typical barn raising involves 100 to 300 workers. Skilled carpenters direct the framing. Apprentices handle sheathing and roofing. Women run the food supply that keeps the labor force moving. A structure that would cost $150,000 on the open market is completed in a single working day. Think about what that means for a moment. The most expensive capital structure on a farm, rebuilt in a day, for the price of lumber and nails. The family that received the barn will show up at every raising in their district for the rest of their lives. The debt is repaid in kind, not in interest. No insurance company profits from it. No bank earns a margin on it. The system runs on reciprocity alone, and it has been running continuously for 3 centuries. But community labor only covers the infrastructure. The Amish also built a trade economy that generates serious outside income, and it starts with wood. In the 1970s, as American manufacturing moved offshore and furniture stores filled with particle board, Amish craftsmen recognized an opening. American buyers were starting to want something factories could no longer deliver: furniture built to outlast the person who bought it. The Amish woodworker operates without factory overhead. The shop is attached to the house. There is no commercial rent, no benefits package, no container shipping from overseas. The craftsman captures nearly the full margin on every finished piece. The man building that dresser was apprenticed at 14. By 20, he was producing finished work. He owes nothing to a student loan, pays nothing in franchise fees, and his commute is a walk across the yard. Amish quilts are functional art, and they have been a source of income for Amish women for longer than most American art markets have existed. A single handmade Amish quilt requires 300 to 500 hours of work. Finished quilts sell for $500 to $5,000, depending on complexity and the sales channel. The quilting bee is not a social occasion that happens to produce quilts. It is a production system. Multiple women working together complete pieces far faster than any individual could. The skill transfers continuously to younger members working alongside their elders. Nothing is wasted, including time. Every Amish community maintains at least one blacksmith. In many communities, that original forge has expanded into a metal fabrication operation, serving both Amish neighbors and the wider rural market. custom agricultural repair, wrought iron fencing, structural hardware, specialized components that can no longer be purchased because the factories that once made them closed 4 decades ago. These are markets where skilled hands command premium rates. The shop has been in the same family for 3 generations. The customers have known exactly where to find it for 40 years. That kind of trust took decades to build and cost nothing to maintain. Horse-drawn transportation requires harnesses. Good harnesses require leather, and leather requires craftsmen who understand how animals move under real working load. Amish harness makers serve their own communities, but the market extends considerably further. Competitive carriage drivers, working farmers, and horse enthusiasts who have discovered that mass-produced synthetic harnesses fail under conditions the Amish encounter every day. These buyers seek out Amish craftsmen specifically, and they are willing to wait. The skill was taught to the current craftsman by his father, who learned from his father before him, at no cost to anyone. The trade is the inheritance, and here is where the story shifts. All 10 of these skills generate income, but the Amish also built systems that keep that income from leaking out, and those systems are every bit as sophisticated as the crafts themselves. Amish children do not attend college, they apprentice. By the time an Amish young man reaches 21, he has spent 6 to 8 years learning a trade under a working master. He enters adult economic life with a fully developed marketable skill, an established network of professional relationships, and nothing owed to anyone. This is not an antiquated arrangement. It is how skilled labor was built in every culture on Earth before the 20th century decided you needed to borrow money to learn a trade. The Amish apprentice earns from his first day of work. His American counterpart spends 4 years accumulating debt before his first paycheck arrives. This is the one that most people outside the Amish world have never heard of, and it may be the single most important economic institution in this entire list. When a young Amish couple needs capital to start a farm or launch a business, they do not apply for a bank loan. They approach their community. Virtually every Amish district maintains an informal lending system. Established members with accumulated capital lend to young families starting out. Terms are direct, interest rates are low and frequently zero. The collateral is not a piece of property. It is your reputation within the community you will live in for the rest of your life. Default rates are extraordinarily low, not because the amounts are small, but because the consequences of default are social, rather than merely financial. The bank never enters the transaction. No shareholder earns a return on it. The capital stays inside the community and circulates there. That is a fundamentally different design than the American lending system, and it produces fundamentally different results. The Amish mastered direct-to-consumer selling long before it had a name or a magazine devoted to it. They have always understood that every middleman who handles a product between the producer and the buyer takes a margin that belongs to the producer. So they cut out the middlemen. Roadside stands, farmers markets, bulk food stores. In every channel, the Amish producer keeps the full retail price rather than the wholesale price. That margin difference, captured consistently over decades, is one of the primary reasons Amish businesses outlast their competitors. But keeping income inside the community is only half the strategy. The other half is keeping major costs out. And no cost hits the American household harder than healthcare. Healthcare is the second largest driver of household debt in America. The Amish have substantially opted out of that equation. And it is worth being clear about what that actually means. This is not about rejecting medical care. Many Amish communities maintain considered relationships with physicians and use modern medicine when situations call for it. But they also maintain working knowledge of botanical medicine that was common across rural America before 1950. elderberry for immune defense, comfrey for wound healing, valerian for disrupted sleep, plantain for skin inflammation. A family that handles routine health matters at home. With plants from the back garden, redirects that money toward building equity rather than pharmaceutical margins. Over 30 years, that redirection compounds into a meaningful difference. The average hospital birth in the United States costs between $13,000 and $30,000. Amish women give birth at home, attended by trained community midwives. The cost is a small fraction of that figure. Amish maternal and infant outcomes are comparable to national averages. In several published studies, certain outcomes are better. Across 7 or 8 births per family, the financial difference between hospital delivery and attended home birth is enough to pay off a car and still have money left over. The Amish build their own homes, not with hired contractors, not with a 30-year mortgage drawn on income they have not yet earned. The house goes up when the materials are paid for, section by section, if the family needs more time, with no bank holding the deed while they pay it down. An Amish carpenter who builds homes for outside customers 6 days a week builds his own home with the same hands. He pays himself in sweat equity. His family enters later life owning their home outright, with no lender who can foreclose on it. That is an outcome the 30-year mortgage was specifically designed to delay by 3 decades. The average American household spends over $600 a year on cleaning products, soaps, and personal care items. Amish families produce almost all of these things at home from materials already on the farm. Hardwood ash lie combined with the rendered animal fat, which is itself a byproduct of the farm's food production, produces functional lye soap by a recipe that predates this country by centuries. What the household consumes internally costs almost nothing. What it sells at farmers' markets, positioned as handmade and natural, commands a premium price. 1 set of raw materials, 2 revenue streams. The Amish have been running that arithmetic longer than the soap aisle at your grocery store has existed. Beekeeping may be the highest return per acre agricultural activity available to a small farm, and the Amish have kept bees since they arrived in Pennsylvania. A productive colony produces 60 to 100 pounds of honey per year. Raw honey at direct retail sells for $8 to $15 per pound. Those same bees pollinate the family garden and orchard, increasing yields on crops already being grown. 1 investment, multiple income streams, no additional land. The Amish ran this calculation in 1723 and have not stopped since. In early spring, before the fields can be worked, and before most agricultural labor can even begin, Amish families tap their maple trees. A mature maple produces 10 to 20 gallons of sap per season. That sap reduces to syrup at a 40-to-1 ratio. Pure maple syrup at direct retail sells for $15 to $25 per quart. Those trees were planted by someone's great-grandfather. The income belongs to someone's grandchildren. The investment matured decades before anyone alive today was born to receive it. That is what it looks like when a community plans across generations rather than quarterly earning cycles. 19 practical skills sit on the table now. The 20th is the one that makes every other one work, and it cannot be taught with any tool you can hold in your hand. The Amish relationship with money rests on a discipline that most of modern America has simply forgotten was available. You do not spend what you do not have. This is not deprivation dressed up as virtue. It is a community-wide agreement, reinforced at every level of Amish life, that debt is not a building tool. It is a wealth transfer mechanism, designed to move money from the people doing the work to the institutions holding the paper. The community lending system keeps capital inside the group. The apprenticeship model keeps young people free of financial obligation. The barn raising keeps major capital expenditures from ever reaching a bank's balance sheet. Each of the previous 19 skills reduces what the household must spend, increases what it earns, or keeps what it earns from leaking out. Without this discipline, the other 19 skills are hobbies. With it, they form a complete economic system that has outperformed the American mainstream through every war, depression, recession, and financial crisis for 300 consecutive years. 300 years without a bailout, without a subsidy, without asking anyone to forgive what was owed. Here is the part worth sitting with. Most of what you just watched was not exclusive to the Amish 50 years ago. Your grandparents very likely canned food. They kept kitchen gardens. They repaired their own roofs. They borrowed from neighbors when they needed capital and repaid in kind. They saved seeds. They cured meat for winter. They knew what plants to reach for when someone in the house ran a fever. What changed was not the availability of these skills. What changed was the culture surrounding them. After the Second World War, a message was delivered to the American public from every direction at once. Buy more, borrow more. Measure your success by what you own rather than what you have built. Let the professionals handle what you used to handle yourself. The Amish received that message, read it carefully, and set it aside. The rest of rural America received the same message and spent the next 70 years building an average of over $100,000 in household debt per family. 300 years of evidence suggests the Amish made the right call. Not that modern life is wrong, but that the skills of self-reliance, community, craft, and financial discipline are not relics of a simpler time. They are proven strategies still working right now for 350,000 people who have quietly built the most durable debt-free economy in American history. Whether you ever grow a garden, tap a maple tree, save a seed, or build a piece of furniture, the philosophy beneath these 20 skills belongs to anyone willing to pick it up. If this made you think differently about how wealth actually gets built, there is a video on screen right now about the homesteading revival happening across rural America and why more families than at any time since the 1950s are returning to exactly these principles. Subscribe. This channel covers forgotten American skills, self-sufficient living, and the practical economics of independence every single week. And if you have a memory of a grandparent, a neighbor, or a way of life that looked something like this, leave it in the comments below. I read everyone.